Asante came to TurboTax after graduating from culinary school and landing a job in the hottest kitchen in town.
My hands are full all day, every day. I love it.
Asante, as your TurboTax expert, I'll make your moves count, guaranteeing 100% accurate filing and your maximum refund. Sound good?
Yes, expert!
Switch to Intuit TurboTax and make your moves count. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Experts only available with TurboTax Live.
It's going to come with a cost. It's going to come with the cost of your data and your privacy.
Have you ever wondered if your smart TV might be sending data to someone who shouldn't be looking at it? What if your kid's smart teddy bear is secretly recording them? We get it, cyber attacks are common. And you're not being paranoid. Despite how safe they might actually seem on the surface, a huge percentage of IoT, the Internet of Things devices, are actually at risk for attack. There was a security report from a company, Palo Alto Networks. They say that about 57% of all IoT devices are vulnerable to cyber attacks of a medium to high severity. Okay, that's pretty bad. Nobody tells you that when you're buying a smart light bulb. And IoT tech isn't limited to just devices and gadgets anymore. It's now showing up in our medical devices. Yeah, a pacemaker. How much security does that really have? And IoT is going everywhere. About 35% of all new toys now are internet connected, about 30% of new cars, and almost 50% of kitchen appliances are now connected to the internet. Who would have ever thought? When you consider the numbers, the sheer amount of opportunities for attack just can't be ignored anymore. Even if your network is filled to the brim with security software and protection, this fragmented nature that there's no real security standard for the Internet of Things makes finding this one-size-fits-all approach much harder. So instead of blanket protection for your entire network, the smart thing is to focus on all of your internet-connected devices individually, and you want to make sure that each one is in fighting shape. Joining us here on Kim Komando Explains is Rico Danielson. He's amazing. He has over 10 years' experience working with companies and organizations across multiple sectors. He solves complex security and compliance issues. When you need to figure out who broke into what and how to get them out, well, that's when you call Rico. He owns a company called First Responder Cybersecurity and Digital Forensics. And let me tell you, he knows his stuff. So sit back, and you really have to listen to this Kim Komando Explains. We're going to be talking more about IoT devices, network attacks, what it's actually like to speak to a cyber actor. Yeah, that guy who says, you need to pay me $5 million to get your files back. Rico had a conversation with one of those guys. And we're also going to delve into medical devices. How vulnerable are they for an attack? So stay right where you are. We have this great podcast coming up, and you don't want to miss a moment. But first, we have to say a few thank yous to our partners in this podcast because they help pay the bills.
Let me tell you about a revolutionary new mobile voicemail app. If you've got a business, your voicemail is probably filled with messages from customers. Often the messages don't contain all the details you need. But what if you were able to get visual information from your callers? That's something you can't do with a traditional audio voicemail box, but you can with Fillmore Productions Video Voicemail. With Fillmore Productions Video Voicemail, callers receive a link to download the mobile app. There they can view important details about your business, watch videos about what you have to offer, and then leave you a video message. Actors and musicians can showcase what they do, and callers to medical practices or repair shops can report their issues visually. There are so many things that video voicemail can do for a business that makes audio voicemail a thing of the past. Discover what video voicemail can do for your business. Visit getvideovoicemail.com. That's getvideovoicemail.com. That's getvideovoicemail.com.
So, Rico, when we start talking about IoT, Internet of Things, it comprises anything from smart thermostats, garage doors. There's even a smart crock pot, which I've never understood. Why do we need a smart crock pot? I mean, you put some chicken breast in there with some salsa, you set it for 5 hours, and you're done, right?
Yeah, but sometimes people just need to know that little bit of metadata in there. They want to know, hey, the most recent one I saw was a grill company. You can actually put a measurement tape and it sends it to your phone and says, this is the moisture of the beef and stuff like that. And people want to know. right?
Well, I probably could have used that last night because, quite frankly, I grilled some chicken, left it on too long, and when I went to get, I'm like, oh, it's like beef jerky, but chicken. So it's close, but the dog sure liked it. All right, so Internet of Things, inherently, it's unsecure because there are no standards per se, correct?
Correct. How can I put it? IoT is a brand new kid on the block, right? Everybody wants to play with them, but nobody knows anything about them, right? And what I always do is I always treat IoT like a vampire. I'm very mindful of who I invite myself into my house because you don't know their capabilities. These IoT devices, there is no standardization around them. It's just a matter of plug and play. What is it there to do, and how much can it do for me, right? But nobody's really paying attention to the overall metadata that's being traversed behind it. And on top of that, the service and feature that it's helping you do, let's just say the crock pot, right? It's going to come with a cost. It's going to come with the cost of your data and your privacy. So you have to make sure you're okay with that. And then number two is how can you combat against that, right? So what can we do to figure that out? Because again, like you just said, there's no standardization around it.
Well, you always hear the stories about somebody puts in a camera in their house, right? And sure. There was that woman, I believe in Tennessee, who she swears that she had a Nest. She put on two-factor authentication, and somebody was still able to hack into her camera because she called me and she was like, I'm not really sure how this happened. And then, of course, we went into the router, the settings. So let's just start with the basics. So when you have a security camera and you scan the QR code, you set up two-factor authentication, where do people make the most common mistakes, aside from putting a password like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
Right. So the other thing is, how I'm notorious for this as well in the past, but how everyone just kind of wants to get through and click through and just be like, just get this experience over with. Go ahead and set that Ring camera up. And they accept the privacy clauses. They accept them accessing the your contacts and your voice and your time to record and your microphone and stuff like that. So people are not really paying attention. They just want to get the ease of use of saying yes. And companies know this, right? They say, if I can put my button over here on the right-hand side that just says yes to my terms and condition, great, no problem. However, whenever people are going through it, they need to pay attention and go backwards into their phone setting or whatever is managing this and go ahead and dictate to the device and properly adjust it to where it will not give out data. It will not transmit my contact information. It will not be automatically on, so it's recording me at any given time.
But so many of these things, if you say, no, I don't agree, then you can't use it.
Well, there's a workaround, right? You can work around that. Ring actually has an area, but what they never tell you is that you actually have to go to the website, right? And actually do an auto configuration inside your dashboard versus on your mobile phone. On your mobile phone, they want you to just blow through it, ease of use. I'm done. My stuff is set up and it's constantly monitoring. And that's how you're going to set up a huge LAN and WAN web network in your area, in your neighborhood, right? But if you use the other augmentation devices, such as the dashboards, the internet configurations and whatnot, you will be able to have more granular control for that.
All right, so let's talk about the Ring network, because this is so fascinating to me, is that Amazon is creating the Sidewalk, right? And so in order for them to create a network of sorts, that they don't have to have any infrastructure. They don't have to lie any cables down. They don't have to do anything. We are buying their products to create a mesh network, and we are automatically opted in. Now, Amazon says that the Sidewalk is encrypted, it's secure, it only uses a small portion of my internet connection in order to make this whole network, which when you think about this, Rico, this network is capable of so many things, isn't it? I mean, like, we could put trackers inside Amazon packages so the drones know exactly where to drop them. And so it has these capabilities, but the way that they're selling it is that if I have a Ring light or a Wi-Fi light at the end of my driveway that my Wi-Fi doesn't reach, that suddenly I'll be able to have this whole internet connection. But what are the potential downsides aside from the data tracking? Is it possible for somebody to truly get into that network and hack it?
So I say that anything's possible. I've seen sophisticated attacks, but they take a long time. So what happens here is Ring is going to have a responsibility to ensure that there's an additional layer of encryption and also a layer of security. And the buck is going to stop at probably the sidewalk where the radio frequency and also the overall reach frequency is going to be non-reachable, right? At that point, we as consumers actually have to take a proactive measure and ensure that we are doing the proper security preventative measures at any given time. So what that means for us is we're going to have to step up our game and know where our data is going at any given time, and also understand where and how it's going there, whether it's a 256 encryption, whether it's a 128 encryption. And then on top of that, we're going to have a little bit more responsibility in regards to our response to our data. That's kind of where I would lay the foundational work right there. The other aspect of it, the technical aspect, is yes, there is an ability to have a network tap on the network side of the house, and I wouldn't put it past Amazon or the big companies to put some sort of network sensor or sensor NAP or another tap of some sort with regards to capturing your data and capturing parts of your data so it can optimize itself. So I wouldn't put it past it. Now, with regards to the attackers, just as much as there are smart people on the Amazon side, there are just as brilliant people on the attacker side. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a cyber incident of very big magnitude of the sidewalk of the Amazon Alexa soon, or better yet, it's not already happened.
You know, you mentioned something about network attacks, and you've been in this industry for a long time. Tell us about what you would consider the most interesting network attack that you were personally involved with.
So that's quite a few network attacks I've been a part of. One of the ones I have seen very sophisticated was for a huge financial firm. And what happened was the attackers knew that their overlay was with another provider. And what happened, they were actually to place themselves in a man in the middle of attack, kind of reroute their traffic. And it really wasn't it was more of a chess game, not a routing game, right? And they knew that they were going to reroute their traffic around the globe. So that actually caused milliseconds, which is millions of dollars in damages. So I wouldn't put it past anybody doing that because this is all a chess game. And also big companies like Amazon and other financial firms and healthcare, their network topology, their network devices are all out there. So it's not too hard to research and figure out a game plan of what they're going to do next. And so you can cause that pain that way.
You know, we're talking about Internet of Things, and you mentioned medical. I was fascinated recently when Apple said, you know, if you got the iPhone 12 and the Mag Plus, you probably shouldn't be putting that up to your chest if you have an implant or a pacemaker, whatever it may be. And it always strikes me that that would be a horrendous thing for an attacker to go after, or medical devices. It's just could wipe out so many people. So when we come right back, we're going to talk more about medical devices, Internet of Things. So stay right where you are, because first we have to say a few thank yous to our partners in this podcast because they make it possible.
Let me tell you about a revolutionary new mobile voicemail app. If you've got a business, your voicemail is probably filled with messages from customers. Often the messages don't contain all the details you need. But what if you were able to get visual information from your callers? That's something you can't do with a traditional audio voicemail box, but you can with Fillmore Productions Video Voicemail. With Fillmore Productions Video Voicemail, callers receive a link to download the mobile app. There they can view important details about your business, watch videos about what you have to offer, and then leave you a video message. Actors and musicians can showcase what they do, and callers to medical practices or repair shops can report their issues visually. There are so many things that video voicemail can do for a business that makes audio voicemail a thing of the past. Discover what video voicemail can do for your business. Visit getvideovoicemail.com. That's getvideovoicemail.com. That's getvideovoicemail.com.
Hey, welcome back to Kim Komando Explains. We're talking about Internet of Things with our good friend Rico Danielson. And Rico, you've been around doing this for how many years?
Almost 15 years now.
And where do you think your expertise really is at?
Definitely cybersecurity, combating against attacks, more specifically around digital forensics and understand incident response. Those are my sweet bread and butter areas. And
what's like the greatest thing that you've done recently?
Besides helping our great, awesome friend Dana?
Yes. Which, by the way, folks, if you're listening to this, you don't know the story about Dana, you're missing out. Under Kim Komando Explains, there's a podcast, and it's titled, "A Woman Was Stalked and Harassed, How We Found the Guy." You see, Dana called my show real quick and was concerned, worried, I don't even think that's the right word, about her 18-year-old daughter who was getting cyber stalked. And we were trying to figure out how to help her because she went to the police and they didn't want to help. So, Rico, you stepped in. Dun, da, da, da. That was our high-tech sound effect. You were our knight in shining armor, so to speak. And so now we're talking about Internet of Things. So aside from Dana, what have you done recently?
I have helped recently a small hospital get out of a cyber ransomware, and also a mortgage company negotiate a cyber ransomware recently.
How did they get hit? Was it typical phishing email?
One of them was definitely a phishing email. On the mortgage side of the house, somebody was having a romantic engagement via LinkedIn. They were exchanging emails. Hey, can you do this for me? Unfortunately, the person got coerced into transferring money, and then more and more money left, and then they just first to the business aspect of it instead of the personal aspect of it, and they actually wound up getting on the phone with them saying, hey, do you mind if we talk to the cyber threat actor? What is it you want? We can negotiate the deal for a couple $1 million. And that's how it started and stopped as well.
Wow. So you were on the phone with the attacker?
Yeah, that's very common now. One of the things that I'm noticing is cyber attackers are very smart. However, they have a motive and means and purpose, and it's always about money. Very rarely I'm starting to see the whole ideology perspective, but more so, hey, we just want money. We'll leave you alone. Pay us $500 grand, and those are the smaller amounts, right? The other ones are $1.5 million, and those are most sophisticated. Those are groups of people, and that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. In regards to the medical side of the house, that's the Wild West. That's the Wild West. So many big product owners like, medical device product owners, A, B, and C, they show up to the hospital and like, hey, we have a cool kidney pump. We have a cool diabetic pump. What do y'all think we could do with this? And nobody's really paying attention. And these small devices that go in your house, go on your body, go on your persons, right? Alleviate and also radiate so much information that nobody's paying attention to how it's being transmitted, except the attackers. And I wouldn't be surprised that we're going to start seeing quite a bit more IoT devices being hacked and taken for money.
Well, I want to talk about that, but I want to go back to you talking to the cyber threat actor. Where was he located?
I don't know. I believe based upon their accent and also a little bit of Chechnya that I picked up, so probably Chechnya, maybe Hungary, roughly about those areas. So Eastern Bloc specifically, they did have a VoIP, so they spoofed their items. Their IP addresses. So it could have been anywhere from Yemen all the way to Uzbekistan. So it really depends what layers they had. So.
How many languages? Okay. And wait, when you speak to somebody like in Croatia or Hungary, do you speak English or is there a translator or how does that work?
Depends. My Arabic is pretty good. My Spanish is pretty good. My English is, I think, pretty decent. And whenever we translate to these other people, it's more so, they speak a little bit of English so we can get the gist of it, if you will.
And I'm sure they know how to say like $5 million in multiple languages.
Exactly.
And then how do you transfer the money to them? Through Bitcoin?
It could be through Bitcoin. It could be through Chainlink. It could be through, there's so many cryptocurrencies now. And what happens is you just pay them via email and it traverses that way. However, in the smart block, it deduces where it's going to and where it's coming from. From their aspect, they're doing a point of money laundering at that point, saying, hey, I need to go ahead and launder this money, mix my funds, and then I get paid. So by the time it hits them, they probably lost maybe 26% of their initial hit. So let's just say doing 500K times 26%, that's what they're probably going to walk away with.
And once they get the money, like for the mortgage company, the hospital, how long does it take for them do they send like a decrypting tool or the instructions or a key, or how does that work?
Yeah. So what they'll do is they'll send a decryption key, if you will, like an asymmetric or symmetric key. They'll send it over to you. They'll say, hey, here you go. Here's all your stuff. However, before you do that, you need to make sure your network is completely locked down. That's what I would suggest first, because even though you're communicating with them, there is a sort of trust, if you will, with your attacker. I would not recommend that you do that. You need to have, before you engage the cyber attacker, you need to have X amount of proactive things in front of you before you can get to that point. And there's so much work that needs to get done before then.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, like, what do you have to do?
So there's, you have to understand your network. You have to make sure you're isolated. You have to make sure that you're squared away. Your DLP plan is all done. Your accounts have been reset. Really depends on your network environment and how big it is. It really depends how much level of effort it's going to take and how much network. I've seen people and companies take anywhere from 1 day to 100 days to get that to the point of engaging with the cyber attacker.
What happens to the insurance company in the middle? Do they participate, or do they say, yes, it's okay, we are going to cover up to this amount? Or what is their involvement?
I just wrote an article about this, the Catch-22 syndrome. So with regards to the Catch-22 syndrome that insurance people are going to be caught in, and also the hospitals and banks and whatnot, what's going to happen is the insurance company is going to say, hey, I need you to use my digital forensics experts incident response people. Okay. However, we're about 2 weeks out, so you're going to have to hold on. And this is where the cyber insurance companies are kind of doing injustice by certain businesses and also certain companies and people. Now they show up to the place 2 weeks later, data's gone, activity's already happened, or it's in the midst of happening. The insurance companies look at you and say, hey, what did you do in the meantime to be reasonably reactive? And if you didn't do anything, then you're caught with the bag, right?
Yeah.
And so, but if you did do something, they said, hey, we don't know if we're going to cover that because it wasn't part of our stuff. So what I'm starting to notice, the market trend here is people are taking matters into their own hands and saying, hey, insurance, you're going to reimburse me because I did this stuff and you weren't there. So I need to know what we're going to do here. Right. So I was just doing a case study earlier that a certain medical provider was reimbursed up to $6.5 million and not to exceed that.
Well, the reason why I bring this up with the insurance is that around the office, I've been calling it the $75,000 photo. Mm-hmm. Several years ago, and I mean several years ago, okay, back in, I think it was 2013, is that we had a video, and it was the top 10 airports for Wi-Fi. That's when it was big. Right now, Wi-Fi is the standard, but sometimes it wasn't the standard then. And we had a gal that worked for us, and she was a multimedia journalist, and she used a picture of an airport for 3 seconds of a 10-minute video. And I got a letter from an attorney that said that because we used the photo and it was copywritten, is that we owed them $75,000.
Okay.
3 seconds. The photo was on the screen, and the video was 10 minutes long. And we figured out that, based upon analytics, about 1,300 people actually saw the photo. So $75,000, which we probably could have. We could have gotten that photo out of a agency for about $50, maybe, right? So I call my insurance company, and they say, "Oh, yeah, we'd love to help you, but you have a $50,000 deductible."
Oh,
and then they said, but because of the insurance, you have to use our attorneys, and our attorneys are $485 an hour for the junior attorney.
Of course. That's right. Okay. That's right. I see that too.
And so we're still negotiating, but I go back to the point of, I keep going back to this attorney saying, I'm not going to pay. They need to prove to me that this photo was on the internet copywritten in 2013. Show me how that is. But the point being is that you may think that you have this insurance and you're going to be able to call them up, and really the onus is going to be on you.
Unfortunately, yes. A lot of consumers, a lot of businesses are going to be stuck with the bag. And I don't agree with that, right? We buy insurances to help us out, to protect, add that layer of protection. And unfortunately, they're in the business of their business and we're in the business of our business. So what that leads me to the next evolutional part is we need to be our own first responders. We need to be able to get into our own game. And we need to be mindful of, if I move this chess piece over here, what does it mean for my business later? And what does it mean from a legal perspective? What does it mean from a cyber perspective?
You know, Rico, I was so fascinated about the whole ransomware. I didn't even talk about the medical Internet of Things. And so stay right where you are. So when we come back, we will talk more about the medical Internet of Things. I promise. You know me. I have ADD. I don't take anything, but I'll come back. So stay right where you are.
Let me tell you about a revolutionary new mobile voicemail app. If you've got a business, your voicemail is probably filled with messages from customers. Often the messages don't contain all the details you need. But what if you were able to get visual information from your callers? That's something you can't do with a traditional audio voicemail box, but you can with Fillmore Productions Video Voicemail. With Fillmore Productions Video Voicemail, callers receive a link to download the mobile app. There they can view important details about your business, watch videos about what you have to offer, and then leave you a video message. Actors and musicians can showcase what they do, and callers to medical practices or repair shops can report their issues visually. There are so many things that video voicemail can do for a business that makes audio voicemail a thing of the past. Discover what video voicemail can do for your business. Visit getvideovoicemail.com. That's getvideovoicemail.com. That's getvideovoicemail.com.
Hey, welcome back to Kim Komando Explains. We're talking to our good friend Rico. He's our cybersecurity expert here at the show. And medical implants, how vulnerable are we?
I would say we're pretty vulnerable with regards to having our data not encrypted, not in the best interest of ourselves. That's kind of the two vulnerabilities that I see. One of them is, let's talk about the vulnerability of not being encrypted. A lot of people are not paying attention of the encryption level, the transmission level. So that means data flying over anybody's network could be possibly intercepted, right?
So you just pull it right out of the air.
It could be. It depends on where the network tap is at, depends on how it's being transmitted, what packet sequence. I believe that anybody with some sort of skill set in the network side of the house could possibly do that.
See, for me, if I had an implant, I'd be like, well, you know what? The network's going over the air. Doesn't matter. I mean, Facebook already knows when I go to the bathroom, and Amazon already knows what I need before I need it. The thing that would concern me if I had a medical implant would be, how vulnerable am I for somebody to say they were able to hack a car? Could they hack my pacemaker?
Yes.
Burn the battery down, or worse, give me a shock when I don't need it?
Absolutely. We've seen that case in point already done. We've seen that research already squared away. I know for a fact that I've seen those use cases done at conferences such as Black Hat, DEF CON, B-Sides, Cactus Con, where they will take a medical device and say, what can we do to it? And it's not only for the purpose of the exercise for people to see what's out there, but also to engage their level of effort on devices. I really believe that these small, smart, dumb devices are going to be a very crucial point in people's healthcare systems, and it's going to be the most viable point, a pivot point for an attacker to get into.
You just used a word, it was almost like an oxymoron, the small, smart, dumb devices.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what I call them, smart, dumb devices. You'll have like a Raspberry Pi or a Nook or something that say, hey, I wanted to call Rico Danielson every hour on the hour for the next 25 years. And that's what it will do. It's so smart that it will do it. It's so smart and so dumb that it says, okay, if you want me to paint this over and over and over, I'm just going to do that without any recourse, without any thought process. It's just going to keep you doing it.
So aside from the pacemaker, is the same vulnerability in like insulin pumps or anything like that?
Yeah. So all these devices, remember, they only have so much amount of capability, such as RAM, CPU utilization. So once you start finding out these different elements, you can actually figure out write a script, you can write some sort of program to over exhaust these resources, like use up so much of the RAM and cause it to do a RAM dump, right? So now you just lost all your data, and now it goes back to resetting if it hits a certain point of RAM dump. If you can over exhaust the CPU utilization, which says, I want you to consume 98% of this computer or device's CPU utilization, and I want you to crash it and reset it whenever I want it to. So imagine if you have that and you have it in somebody's kidney pump and you just blow away its kidney pump, it's going to make you say, whoa, I'm going to go ahead and reset. Oh, who's this new person? Let me over insulate them.
So how do we protect against that? Is there anything that we can do? I mean, we always say like the onus is on the manufacturer, right? But
not necessarily, unfortunately. A lot of manufacturers got geared away from that in regards to the terms and condition usage, saying, hey, here you go. You're in charge of your own device. Now you're in charge of your own destiny. Here's the best thing you can do. I think we as consumers need to take matters in our own hands and understand the configuration. I know this is going to get super technical and super nerdy, but that's okay because we need to understand that the configuration level, what's open, what's not open, what can it do, what can it not do, what is the peak points of performance of these things, and then what's not the peak point of performance of these items as well.
So Rico, all that sounds high level, but do you have any like real life examples where something like this has happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I was brought into a wrongful death case, and they said that the manufacturer was at fault. They produced a small medical device it's called a stem, a neural stem, and actually goes up through your spine and goes through your layers of your layer 1, layer 2 skin. So it provides neural stimulation to your spine. And unfortunately that this person passed away, and they said it's because it was a defective device. So upon my research, I was able to jump in there, understand what is needed, what cybersecurity elements, and I come to find out that this medical neural device that went up through the spine, that's an implant, had no security whatsoever around it. It was radiating information left and right. It was broadcasting information saying, hey, I'm a medical device. Tell me what you want to know. And so could we definitively say it's been hacked and compromised? No, because the smart dumb device did not have enough metadata to churn through, but we could not say it as well, right?
Boy, that's horrible.
Yeah, unfortunately, this person was, the person passed away due to the medical device. The medical device company wound up paying out $2 million. That's fine and all. What I'm worried about, I never heard from that medical device company is saying that whether they remediated the issue of cybersecurity or not. And that's what I'm really concerned about, because these medical devices are everywhere. And I see them in neural pain stops, in neural optimization places, operating rooms, and they're implanting these things in people. And my concern is you never remediated the issue in the first place.
And all your medical records are online. I mean, that's
medical EMR. That's a whole another conversation right there.
and that's fascinating to me. And it's great that all your medical records are online. My mother, as you know, Rico, was in the Mayo Clinic recently, and they are now using the Epic system, which is used globally. It's a huge system. But she was in one of the first rooms where there was a huge monitor, like a 60-inch monitor at the foot of her bed. Mm-hmm. And it was a touch screen. So I can touch the screen and I can see all of her medical tests, her images. I could write notes to the doctor. It was really quite fascinating to me that everything was just right there available on the touchscreen and for patients' convenience. And when the attending physicians come in, that they can pull everything up and show you. And then at the same time, I was thinking anybody can just walk in and touch the screen. And there's no authentication on this system at all. I was astounded by that.
Absolutely. I understand that. And I see that. And even though it's a great means of transportation and great means of communication, there is some sort of thing of privacy. We need to understand privacy.
Well, in your medical records, how vulnerable are they?
Depends where they are, but they're pretty vulnerable. with regards to where they are, just worked a medical issue here in Scottsdale where the medical clinic was not able to sufficiently provide information and also security around it. So they're just medical devices anywhere with access to anything. So it was very disturbing to see that.
So if you have a medical device, what are your options? What are you supposed to do with it?
So medical devices, I believe that we need to be able to understand what they are, how they transmit, and what is the max capacity of it. That's one thing of it. And then number two, understanding the security around it, not only from your phone perspective, from the physical perspective.
I'm fascinated by that. I really am. Hey, Rico, you're awesome. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate y'all. Appreciate it. Thanks.
So it really falls on you to protect your IoT devices from cyber attacks. You always want to check your network to see which devices are online and connected. You want to monitor your Wi-Fi network, especially for intruders, because you want to protect every device that's connected to it. But how do you know every device that's connected to it? Yeah, I know. Therein lies the problem. If you feel comfortable, if you know what you're doing, you can get into your router's online interface. If you don't know how to get into your router's online interface, you can Google that at the manufacturer's website, and they'll give you a support manual. And if you don't feel comfortable digging into your network, there's an app to do that. It's called Advanced IP Scanner. It's free, and it's a reliable option that tells you quickly, with very little input, everything that's connected to your network. Now, next you want to consider setting up a separate Wi-Fi network for your devices. Why would you want to do that? Well, this way all your IoT devices are on one network and not on your primary network where you're doing all your banking, your financial stuff. You get the drift. So to protect your main network, you create a separate guest network. This gives all your IoT devices access to the internet that they need to work without putting your computer and everything else, your important files, at risk. We have the steps over at Komando.com on how to set up a guest network. Of course, use strong, complex passwords that aren't easily guessed. And this is super important. Always check for and install the latest updates for every IoT device that you own. This will help keep you just one step ahead of hackers and cyber criminals. More internet-connected devices doesn't mean more holes in your system, if you're smart. Think of your network as this garden with a growing collection of flowers that you have to tend to. And the more you water them, the better shape they'll be in. The more you protect your network, the better shape that you'll be in. If you learned just one thing about this podcast, make sure that you give us a great, glowing 5-star review and share this podcast with your family members and friends, because that's how we get more people that are connected, more people who know what they're doing about technology. And the more people we know about technology, the safer that we'll all be. And just a quick reminder, this is not the Kim Komando Show podcast. You can actually subscribe to the Kim Komando Show podcast on Apple right now while you're thinking about it. Or if you're on Android, head over to getkim.com. Just search for Kim Komando Show. And I'll see you next time.
Asante came to TurboTax after graduating from culinary school and landing a job in the hottest kitchen in town.
My hands are full all day, every day. I love it.
Asante, as your TurboTax expert, I'll make your moves count, guaranteeing 100% accurate filing and your maximum refund. Sound good?
Yes, expert!
Switch to Intuit TurboTax and make your moves count. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Experts only available with TurboTax Live.